4 months from today, Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques will lift off for a 6-month mission on board the International Space Station. But before that, he is undergoing a grueling training program not far from Moscow. And that's where Jeff Semple caught up with him to learn about our next Canadian in space.
These days, Canadian David Saint-Jacques can't seem to wipe the grin off his face.
He's a smile with legs.
Perhaps because he's been dreaming about this since he was 6, the first time he saw a picture of the Earth taken from space.
It's an old dream that's been on the back of my mind ever since I was a young boy. I mean, I can't remember not fantasizing about it.
But he admits he didn't think that dream would actually come true. Instead, he became an engineer, then an astrophysicist, then a doctor, working in a remote Inuit community in the north. Along the way, he also became a pilot and learned 5 languages.
I'm one of those people, I'm not alone, who it just annoys me when I don't understand something. I just can't stand it.
His childhood friends say they can't stand it either.
You have to be really self-confident to be friends with David Saint-Jacques because he's always gonna be better than you are at almost everything.
Then, in 2009, Saint-Jacques heard the Canadian Space Agency was recruiting.
Yeah, it's as if time stopped and I kind of felt like I owed it to the little boy in me, to the 6-year-old in me to try, to at least give it a shot.
After almost a decade of training, he's about to become Canada's man aboard the International Space Station.
I mean, it's something I kind of have to pinch myself.
Saint-Jacques will spend 6 months living aboard the International Space Station, but much of his training here focuses on just a few hours of that mission, the launch and the landing. Saint-Jacques will co-pilot the Soyuz rocket, so if something goes wrong, he may need to take control. He says manually landing the space capsule feels like trying to hit a bullseye with an elephant on your chest.
A baby elephant.
My first thought was, this must be what it feels like to be in a barrel going over Niagara Falls, only the barrel's on fire.
Saint-Jacques has trained in fire and in water to get used to operating in zero gravity. The key, he says, is prioritizing and multitasking. And his best training for that didn't come from a space center.
The closest thing in my life is having young children. That, you know, it's something you need, you want to focus. There are plenty of distractions. You're tired, yet it's a great, amazing joy you have, but it takes every brain cell you have.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Saint-Jacques hopes to build on the success of Canadian Commander Chris Hadfield by sharing his experience through social media and inspiring a new generation of Canadian kids to shoot for the stars. In just 4 months, Canadian astronaut David Saint-Jacques will lift off to the International Space Station, and he won't be going alone. Saint-Jacques will co-pilot the Soyuz rocket alongside Russian Commander Oleg Kononenko and American Anne McClain.
We are best friends and we trust each other's lives.
Working and training together at Russia's space facility for months, often in extremely close quarters.
I mean, we spent, hundreds of hours together fighting really, really bad situations in these simulators, so we kind of know each other very well, the crew. It makes us brothers and sisters in arms.
But this cosmonaut camaraderie stands in stark contrast to their country's diplomatic differences.
Canada has always been clear and unequivocal in our condemnation of the actions of Vladimir Putin and Russia.
Canada and the U.S. have leveled sanctions against many sectors of Russia's economy, but Moscow's multi-billion-dollar space program has remained remarkably unscathed.
So I've been saying, and I'm sure you've heard over the years, and as I campaign, that getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
In Helsinki, I had a great meeting with Putin. We discussed everything. I had a great meeting. We got along really well. By the way, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. That's a really good thing.
Я думаю, что космос, космическая промышленность.
No matter what's happening in the political arena, in the space industry we are cooperating, achieving goals together, says Russian Commander Kononenko.
Космическая индустрия специалист.
Since the Americans shuttered their space shuttle program in 2011, they've relied on the Russians to transport them to the International Space Station.
Essentially the castle in the sky that we've built together, and it's really a tribute to how the human spirit can really overcome any kind of tensions.
We can't ignore politics and the tensions. It's just that's the reality.
Rather than shy away from politics, Saint-Jacques hopes to make it part of his mission, to use his extraterrestrial experience as a unifying force.
So you dive in and you push.
It's in your face when you see this one planet floating in the middle of deadly vacuum of space. You cannot help but feel like you are more than a Canadian or an American or a Russian. You are human. You're an earthling. When we decide to work together and manage to find ways to work together despite the tensions, despite the differences, when we manage to get over that and sit down and work together on a common goal, wow, it's unbelievable what we can achieve.
One small step for Saint-Jacques, one giant leap for geopolitics. Jeff Semple, Global News, Moscow.